5 p.m. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ask Commissioner Stewart if he lead us in the invocation and the pledge, please.
Sure. Please stand and join us. Heavenly Father, we come again tonight, God. We humble ourselves and we ask, Lord, that you, while we can't, Lord, make everyone happy, God, we do ask, God, that you let us do your will. Father, I just ask that you grant us wisdom tonight to do the things of the business of the county. Lord, just bless those that are here and those that can't be. And we ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jerry, did you turn your ringer on?
All right. Thank you all for coming out tonight. If you'd like to speak, we have 2 citizens to be heard opportunities. You can do either or, one at the beginning, one at the end, and also speak on each individual item. Please fill out a speaker card with Miss Patty for any time that you would like to speak. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I want to pull something off the consent agenda.
Okay.
Number 9.
9.
Motion to approve with the changes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right. Citizens to be heard. We'll start out with Mr. Joe Mattingly.
You said most of what I wanted you to hear in your prayer. You're never going to do anything. You're not going to write an ordinance. You're not going to write a rule. You're not going to write a law that's going to make everybody happy. I've learned a lot from you guys. I read your entire agenda last night between naps. I don't know how you do it.
It was a good one.
I don't know what they pay you. It's not enough. I wanted to tell you thank you for all you do. I know that you get aggravated and fussed at and picked on, and you've got a tough job to do, and I wanted to thank you. I wanted to speak to you about the intersection down there behind my store. During the hurricane, it was a total circus. It's a circus a lot of times, but during the hurricane, traffic was backed up. People trying to turn on to 98 off of the old 319 north of my store. And it stayed backed up there for hours because people going to the beaches getting their stuff. But they went that way and they think they need to come back that way. So they were getting up there to the north end and getting jacked up. Couldn't get out. They were blocking the traffic up there. I feel like, again, you're not going to do everything to make, you're not going to do something to make everybody happy. It's impossible, and it's certainly impossible there. But I feel like that's a very big safety issue. I've seen 2 gasoline tankers turn around underneath that light. One of them was a contract carrier for me. I called his dispatcher. He wasn't hauling for me at the time. I called his dispatcher. I said, dude, your truck just turned around in the middle of the intersection under the light in the fog. They got great technology. They pulled it up on GPS. They pulled it up on Google Earth, and he called me back, and he said, my driver didn't do anything wrong. He didn't break the law. And he didn't break the law. But a gasoline tanker versus a car, I've been in the petroleum industry my whole life. That's a losing situation every time. I've seen multiple motorhomes. I've seen the gentleman who owns the Ace Hardware over here bust a tire on his motorhome trying to make that turn. Every day there are people in my store fussing that they get up there and they just can't deal with it. And I've heard people say we need to put up more signs. DOT had a lighted reader board sitting in the middle of the highway. In the middle of the old 319, and people were driving around it and going up there and turning back south. So I'm not a believer in the signage. But again, I want to thank you very much for your time and all you do, and I understand anything you can do to help us, and anything you can do to help with the signage, I very much appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Miss Bonnie Basham.
Good evening again. My name is Bonnie Basham Woodward, and I am the president of the Florida Native Plant Society here in Wakulla and Franklin counties. Our chapter is meeting tonight, or I would have probably had some more folks with me, but I told them to conduct the meeting and I'd come down here and chat with you for a couple of minutes. At some point, I would like to clarify the vote of last week because there was a lot of confusion as to who voted which way. I don't know how to properly ask you about that, but...
Got me and Ralph confused. He voted against it, I voted for it.
It was 3-2.
You voted for it, Merritt, and you voted against it.
I did.
Oh, well, okay. Well, we've
Even though I
heard...
got several thank you emails for voting against it.
I didn't get any.
Well, rightfully so. I appreciate that because we've all been confused.
It was
but-
correct in the Wakulla News.
Okay, all right,
And
thank you.
also the minutes, which are part of the agenda for this meeting, the minutes have it in there correct as well.
All right, thank you. Let me just mention, I was really heartsick at the February 5th meeting when you made that change to your roadside mowing regime. Your new plan calls for mowing those wildflowers 6 times a year. The plants that we have come to rely on pollinators and butterflies, and we rely on for that, and to given a chance to let the flowers bloom and reseed and become part of the life of the community, will be gone because they will be mowed so often that they will never be able to finish a full life cycle, and we're concerned about that. I think about Interstate 10, Highway 98 in Taylor County, Highway 90 in Leon County, and all around you there are counties that have active and aggressive wildflower programs, and I wish that you guys would reconsider that vote that you took a couple of weeks ago. You're advertised as the natural place to be, and what I fear is that you're going to have barren or nearly barren roadsides, so the natural beauty of the county will suffer, and the ecotourism that we have and enjoy here won't be there. I mean, people come from miles and from other countries to watch our monarch festival, and the monarchs are not going to have the Asclepias that they need for larval food and for pollination. I am a volunteer at the Wildlife Refuge working on the monarch project, and we're trying to grow butterfly weed for every single county in the state that's indigenous to that county. And I find it ironic.
Can you bring it
Sure.
to a close?
I
know
find
we
it
took a little bit of
ironic.
your time, but bring it on in.
Okay. I find it ironic that our county won't have the wildflowers here while we're sending them out to all the other counties around the state. So going forward, I would hope that you would reconsider that vote, come up with a plan that is simple for contractors, safe for citizens, and preserves the wildflower corridors.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I have some pages that I've been asked to bring to you of Facebook posts of people who were concerned about this project. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. David Damon.
Who do I give them to?
David Damon, Crawfordville. First, I want to thank Ralph Thomas, and I want to thank Chuck Hess for last week voting to reconsider the wildflower choice of mowing 6 times a year. I think this is one of those issues that on the surface seems like kind of no big deal, and maybe I kind of felt that way at one point in time, like, hey, they're wildflowers, they're weeds, they're whatever. But I think when you start digging a little bit deeper, you start understanding and educating yourself on the importance. And I've learned a lot in the last 6 months, thinking about this issue and learning about it and understanding the importance of this. And it really doesn't make sense to go ahead with this plan that was adopted at the last meeting because, number one, you're paying a lot of extra money for all that mowing, a lot of equipment, a lot of tax dollars unnecessarily. On top of that, you're mowing something down that's really critical, really important. I was watching last night on PBS, and after the news, they had travel show. You know, it's usually Rick Steves, or now it's that other girl, Amanda somebody, I don't know her name. And last night she went to a county in Texas. And the whole beginning of that thing about going to this county in Texas and talking about their barbecue and all the other really great things they offer, the whole beginning of this was about wildflowers. And it was all about how important it is to their ecotourism and their economy and on the roadside. They also went to a farm, a whole huge farm of wildflowers. And this guy in a hat and cowboy boots and big tough looking cowboy-like guy, he's growing wildflowers. And he's got them as far as you can see, all different colors. But on their roadside, it was a big deal to go to that county and see these particular wildflowers. Who knew, right? And I think we need to reconsider that. I think Mike Stewart came close. I just think he kind of threw in the towel and gave up and felt beat down. And I think it's worth readdressing and just tweaking it and do what's the best thing for the wildflowers, the tourism, the county, and just rethink it just a little bit and come up with a little bit better plan for mowing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That ends our citizens to be heard. Awards and presentation. Just give a quick intro. Last year, Representative Fine from Brevard County brought up House Bill 17, which was going to be a super preemption bill to basically take away counties and cities' ability to have any regulations at all that pertain to business and commerce. And so we managed to beat that. We really beat it on the Senate side, not on the House side. So this year, the bill hasn't come back, but they tried to run it through the Constitution Revision Commission, and Senator Lee sponsored it. We managed to get that killed so far.
So it's killed at the CRC.
It is. It's dead at this point. Of course, they have a term of zombies. I guess the Constitution Commission can possibly bring things back, and so till they're done, we're not for sure. But so far, we've got that killed. He even admitted in open testimony he tried to get an amendment to it, and that failed. And then after that failed, he said, well, I don't like my own proposal without the amendment. And so looks like that's dead. So the Florida Association of Counties at the conference last year had me on the stage with basically against 3 other people, the representative and 2 representatives from the hotel and restaurant lobbyists. And so I just wanted to show this so you guys can see, what's going on there, and so the public can see when we go to these conferences what we're fighting for. Sometimes it's a Florida Association of Counties.
I've never seen anybody who can operate those things. They never work.
Hard to do when everybody's watching you. Pressure. Take a breath.
Talk amongst yourselves about something.
Yeah.
But I should just be able to put it in there.
Was it an FAC conference, Ralph?
No.
Yeah, that's it.
Commissioner Thomas, here we go. Error occurred.
Huh.
You've been censored.
There you go. Okay, let's move on.
Before we leave that, Ralph, I want to tell you, I did watch it, and I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt here. It was a good presentation. You did a good job. You represented not only Wakulla County. I was proud of what you did and what you said and the way you said it, but you represented all the small counties in this state, and I, for one, appreciate that, because if we lose local home rule in any level, it's detrimental to the people of the county,
Absolutely.
all of our citizens. And I for one, appreciate what you did. I thought you did a great job, and thank you again for spending your time doing that.
And I second that, and
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you doing this too.
Yeah.
And it was more than just the small counties, it was all counties.
Yeah.
Okay, this is
And
about
cities as well.
Good.
And if people don't understand, if you stand up for that, a lot of these conversations that we're having would never happen.
Yeah.
Like the wildflower, we would never have that conversation, state would rule.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah, we're definitely under assault from Tallahassee right now.
I really doubt if there's a more active commissioner in the state than Commissioner Thomas.
I just try to
I
make
know.
a difference. Yeah.
I mean, well, you go above and beyond on that.
You can have it too.
It's a little crazy sometimes. All right, we'll get back on
Move
track
consent,
here.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Number 9.
Item number 9, Commissioner Hess.
Okay, this is to advertise for changes in our sign ordinance, and I'm going to be voting against this in every shape, form, and fashion. Basically, we came forward with our Chamber of Commerce came up, developed a program that everybody agreed to for our sign ordinance. Any changes that I don't see as being needed or and what you've done here isn't specific to a problem that you seem to have identified. Now, if you want to tailor this to just the problem you have identified where a business has 2 frontages on state highways and has a problem with that, I could see that might be a real concern. But to give everybody in the county an extra 200 feet of signage, up to 200 feet of signage, and give billboard size roadsides to any multiple unit just doesn't seem reasonable. They already have the 32% of their fascia plus a 200-foot billboard, 200-foot sign, square foot sign. So, the changes here I just don't feel are necessary, and I'm going to vote against it. And then there's another issue on the sign ordinance was we need to start getting our code enforcement involved because we have some real rules on temporary signs, and we need to make sure that especially in the election season, that the rules for temporary signs get followed as we move forward. And as long as it requires somebody, a citizen, to make the complaint, it's not going to work. And I think it's one of these things that needs to be a responsibility of somebody in our staff, in our code enforcement staff, to look for problems where people are not following our sign ordinances. Thank you.
Okay, basically, I'm going to disagree with you on that, and I'm going to vote for it. The retail people are paying the bill. They pay a large percentage of our taxes. They present a large section of our jobs. We need to support them in any and every way that we can. And one of the ways that we can do that is for people coming down 319 to be able to see their business. And you never think about a sign that's saying barbecue, but the first time that you're a little bit hungry, you remember where you saw that last barbecue sign. And if you hide these signs or you just make them so small they're insignificant, I dislike billboards. I totally dislike billboards. I totally dislike billboard companies. But what we have here is something that is beneficial to our business, and I'm going to vote for it.
250 square feet is Wakulla Loves Jesus billboard up at 267. That's 250 square feet. So you're talking about 250 square feet. You're talking about billboard size signs, and so I can't support that.
Do we have a motion on the table?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. One citizen, Mr. David Damon.
David Damon, Crawfordville. Once again, you're just chipping away at the quality of life in Wakulla County. Little by little, bringing it down. There's not a business that I go by that I can't find it. If this is about Rockies, and I get the feeling that's what I'm hearing and that's what it's about, everybody knows where it is. You know, if there's a problem there, as Commissioner Hess suggested, evaluate it on a one-by-one basis. That makes sense. I get that. If Rockies needs another sign because they're have 2 road frontages or something like that, I understand that. But just to blanketly say a business can have a sign the size of a billboard is really going to clutter the county up. And a lot of people are going to jump all over it, and all of a sudden there's this competition, so you got the guy that has a normal size sign, and on each side he's got billboards. What's he going to do? Then he's got to do a billboard because he's being overwhelmed by billboards. And I just think that this was worked out. A lot of time was put in it initially, and I think it's a mistake to degrade our county further by doing this. Thank you. And I might add, let me add one thing, because I don't want to be just down on Rockies. I'm not. They did what I think is a pretty decent job of landscaping down there. There's a lot of trees, there's a lot of, bushes, a lot of plantings, and hopefully they'll water them and they'll survive. And I can't imagine that they want to make the county look crappy either. I suspect that they want to keep it looking tasteful too. So, one-by-one basis, I would suggest. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Joe Mattingly.
Joe, if you will, speak into the microphone.
I'm an anti-sign person too, but you're not reading your ordinance. Your ordinance says 250 feet or 200 feet or however many, 128 feet. That's an aggregate. Nobody's going down there and putting up a billboard. They would have the opportunity to if that's what they chose to do. My Rockies on the front of my building is 74 square feet. So I lose 100 out of my 128 square foot that I'm allowed. I lose 74 by putting a name on the front of my building. I have Rockies on my canopies. Each one of those is 24 square feet. I believe Summer can tell you, she knows it better than I do. Maybe they're aggregate at least 24 square feet. But at any rate, I've burned up 100 feet just by putting a name on my building. So I don't want you to feel like that I'm going to run down there and put up a billboard, or anybody is. No business is going to do that. It's an aggregate of every little sign you put up. They measure it to the inch and say you're allowed 128 square feet. You got a sign here that says boats, that's 6 square feet. And it adds up in a big hurry. So a little bit more signage is definitely necessary. It should be, in my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion, based on a square footage of your building or a linear footage of your property frontage or something like that, so that you don't have everybody in the county putting up a 200 square foot sign, but you do have the opportunity to, if you have a development the size of mine. I spent $5.2 million and y'all were kind enough to send me a tax bill for $32,000 a year. I need to be able to sell biscuits, barbecue, chicken, something. I need to do a little bit of advertising in order to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion.
I want to just point out that what we're talking about does not apply basically from East Ivan Road south to Gulf Coast, right? That's the Crawfordville Town
That's correct.
Plan area. This is only outside in the other areas where there is commercial development. So you were in South Choppy or Smith Creek, I guess this would apply, or Medart.
Also important to note, the motion that's on the table is not to adopt or reject this. It's to advertise it. So it's a good opportunity for the public to weigh in and give us more input, but I guess it'll come back at the next meeting, March 5th meeting.
It will be the end of March,
That'll go
most
to
likely.
Planning
It's got to go to
Commission
Planning
first.
Commission, yes, sir.
Okay. So end of March, it'll come back for a final decision. Further discussion.
I just want to say I agree with Chuck about the little signs that are all over it. It's litter in our county. I mean, there's hundreds of them, and I do wish we could do something about that. I don't know how we do that. I know y'all are overwhelmed with, and how, I mean, I wish we could blanket some way to address the way they've littered up the county with these little.
The problem is that they have to have a complaint from a citizen to do it, and that's where I think we have to change the rules so that they can have somebody in the code enforcement that rides by a business and says that they're breaking the rules can go ahead and stop by and say, you're breaking the rules, we're going to have to give you a code lien if you don't clean it up.
And that's
Code enforcement.
I agree with you. That's an eyesore. It's a mess. I think it detracts from our county. I support this. I think mainly because I'm trying to help Summer and her staff be able to do their jobs easier and better. Now, does it make for a bigger sign? One individual sign, yes, but when you take the aggregate value of those signs, like a business is going to do, like he just discussed from Rockies, I'm not doing this for Rockies. I'm doing this for the county.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with Rocky's having a little more signage because he's got two.
I understand.
Two right of ways.
I understand.
Okay, he's trying to sign up, but from a lot of businesses, they've only got a small building, and all of a sudden they've got this huge sign that they can put up because they don't have any place else to put a sign.
I understand, and like Randy said, this doesn't apply. There's still just the maximum you can put up in the downtown plan is 100 square feet. Is that right, Summer?
That's correct.
So that hasn't changed this at all in the downtown plan, which now
Taco Bell just complied with that too.
takes up most of our commercial area in our county. So I'm interested to hear what the citizens have to say, and like Ralph just suggested, this is just for advertisement, and I want to hear the feedback from the citizens, but at this point, I'm in support of this ordinance going forward.
Zaxby's is complied, Prime Meridian Bank's complied, right, Summer?
Zaxby's fell under the old sign ordinance, but O'Reilly's, Taco Bell, Prime Meridian, those are the newest businesses, and they've all complied with the 100
Capital City
aggregate.
Bank, for example, fell under the old.
Correct.
One of the things that we're talking about clutter on the side of the road. We don't have it so much today, but it is coming down the road, is that dealerships, automobile, used car dealerships, they'll park their automobiles on the sidewalk if they get a chance. I'd like to see something specific that says they have to stay behind the right-of-way. They have to stay on their property, not on the right-of-way.
And they definitely should be doing that. They are not permitted to park in the right-of-way.
Well, they do that all over the world. I'm telling you, they'll fill the right-hand lane full of automobiles if given a chance.
And on O'Reilly's, they told me that they purchased a sign that was their typical sign, and it was outside of our guidelines, and so they had to take that back and get a second sign. So
That's correct.
whatever they normally put up all over the country,
And that's not changing.
they couldn't put up here. They had to go with a smaller sign. I'd like to see us having some kind of scale. I agree that we don't need billboards at every property, but I think does Farm Bureau and Walmart need the exact same sign? And I think maybe we can put some language in there that addresses a maximum size single sign, but then a cumulative total for all signs. So I mean, there's times when people need more signage.
Sounds like you need to have a sit down with Summer.
Yeah.
Summer's
I
loves talking about sign orders.
I tried to get across 32% on any frontage, which works beautifully, but it didn't work here, but it just really works beautifully.
We talk more about signs than we have about feral cats. And fracking, put together.
Further discussion?
Huh?
Further discussion? The motion is to advertise the meeting coming back at the end of March.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. All right. That ends our consent agenda. We'll go to general business, item number 23.
Yes, this agenda item requests board approval of emergency procurement report and approve payments to Cinch Underground Incorporated amount of $26,080 and Core and Main LP in the amount of $19,006.06 for a sewer force main repair at lift station number 76, which occurred on quite a few weeks ago during the installation of the bike trail bridge. They hit our force main that was bored underneath the wetland, and therefore we're going. DOT has said they will more than likely reimburse us for that because there's some concern as to whether it was placed in the right place. If not, we're going to be. If not DOT, then ESG will more than likely be reimbursed for
Motion to
this
approve.
as well.
Second.
Did they call for a locate on that?
They call for a locate, yes, but they did not locate in the middle because it was wet. But there's some issues with that as well. So
So it was a directional bore.
Directional bore that was hit, yes. And
bet
so
that
that
was
is our, we got to get the contractors off the hook, but that's where we have to be, we got to hold people responsible, so, okay.
Motion and a second. Any citizens? Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 24.
Yes, this requests board ratification of a payment to Talcon Electric Cooperative in the amount of $29,530 for the installation of electric and water service for a lift station on 132 Catawba, which is in Wakulla Gardens area. This is for our Phase 2 sewer. We had, the reason this is coming before you is we looked at the difference between either add-a-phase or three-phase, and the add-a-phase was just about as much. So from a maintenance standpoint, we chose to go with this, which is much safer and easier maintained.
So
And
you were gonna do
it's part of our grant. I'll be paying for it. There's in the agenda item, it states that it will not be paid for out of grant funds, but it will be. That was an error. It will be paid for, and Brandy was what she was concerned, which makes sense, was there won't be enough funding at the end, she feels like, to cover that. But for right now, we're going to put it in the grant, and if we have to, it doesn't cover it, we'll cover it out of sewer
Motion to
funds.
approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any citizens?
So you were going to do three-phase delta, right, which converts
Right.
single-phase to three-phase, but which you would have had to have a big motor
Well,
type thing
and
to
that
convert it.
cost to do that was about $26,000, and this is actually about $28,000 when you take that. And the problem, as you know, with add-a-phase is then you've got that much more equipment, and you have problems
Maintenance.
with the motors, and the maintenance are much higher. So we went, no, that don't make sense to spend $2,000 more and put the right stuff in there.
Absolutely agree.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Public hearing, item number 17.
Yes, this requests board approval to conduct a public hearing to approve and purchase the sale agreement for the acquisition of property on Dr. Martin Luther King Road and for right-of-way acquisition. This is at the corner of Dr. Martin Luther King and Spring Creek Highway. We need it for right-of-way for the future expansion, as well as for a right turn lane, as well as for cleaning the entrance up to that area and re-landscaping it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any citizens?
This is that little corner that has the Wakulla Gardens sign on it that's been there for
Yes,
many years. I don't
dilapidated
think
sign,
it's
yes.
even buildable, and the county's paying how much for it?
$1,000.
Okay.
Further discussion? Hear none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 18.
Yes, this is a request for the board's approval to conduct a public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending Section 5-7 of the Land Development Code. Also, oh, I apologize.
I was like, hey, go ahead.
Wait a minute.
Have at it. This is
Go
the agenda item to conduct a public hearing and adopt an ordinance to repeal Division 7, Chapter 2, which is Sections 2.235 through 2.239. This is going to repeal those Restore Act committee that we're no longer utilizing because we're past that phase.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any citizens? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Now, something.
Now 19.
Now this is a request for approval to conduct the public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending Section 5-7 of the Land Development Code, also amending Administrative Regulation 8.01 and adoption of a resolution pertaining to family enclave agreements. Based on previous board direction, staff has revised this administrative regulation and section of the code to allow for existing previously approved family enclave agreements to be approved administratively without the need for public hearing, and ultimately this will reduce the cost of those annual approvals to $50 per year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Citizens? Further discussion? I'd just like to say thank you. And
Yeah,
that's
good job, Tom.
cutting red tape and cost to the citizens, and still meets the same goal. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 20.
Yes, this is a request to conduct the first of two public hearings to consider an ordinance which creates residential zoning districts for the Crawfordville Town Plan area. These two new proposed zoning districts are for the Crawfordville Low Density Residential and Crawfordville High Density Residential. Staff is requesting an additional bit of direction from the board with relation to a special requirement for recreation areas. Staff is recommending that that be required for all multifamily developments in these zoning categories and any development that would result in 60 units or more. Additionally, not included in the agenda request, staff would also recommend including a minimum half-acre size requirement for that open space and a calculation based on the population that would be generated to determine if more than a half an acre is needed for a subdivision.
Is there a motion needed on this? It says motion to conduct the first public hearing?
Yes.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any citizens?
This was the Hess amendment with the addition of open space, right, Chuck?
Yep.
What I talked to Summer and Melissa about earlier was if there's some metric they could index it to, and what Melissa came up with was what the...
The level of service standard out of the capital improvements element.
Exactly. So you take the level of service standard, it's already spelled out, it says X number of acres per population, and so what was it, like 1 acre per...
5 acres per 1,000 people.
Okay, so if you have a townhouse development with 200 units, for example, and we're going to use the census data, say it's 3, that will be 600 people. They, 6 divided by 10 times 5 acres would tell them how much park space or whatever recreation space they have to provide.
Right, and this excludes the setbacks. It's just open recreation area.
And everybody's doing this, by the way. Mallet Pond has done it. The one behind the Tractor Supply has their own little park. The farm has their own park. Everybody's doing it, but this just codifies it a little more.
Right. And this kicks in with 60 or more units, so
Correct.
below 60.
Or multifamily.
Or if it's a multifamily.
If it's apartment complex or anything like that, they have to do it right off.
And I agree with that.
Part of
If they're going to build their own little park for the kids to play in or whatever they're going to do. And it could come in many different fashions too, right, Summer?
That's correct.
A minimum of half acre.
Minimum half acre.
Mr. Chairman, so your motion includes the direction to
Correct.
implement all of that in the half-acre minimum. Thank you.
Whose idea was a half acre? Was that yours?
Based on general discussion amongst staff today.
Man, I'm fine with it.
Did we get a second on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I second it.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
The next item is a request for the board's approval to conduct the first of 2 public hearings regarding an ordinance for updating existing residential zoning districts. This would provide an update to the R2, R3, and RTH zoning districts and would also repeal 3 zoning districts not currently in use by any or designated to any property in the county. It also provides an update to definitions relating to various types of family dwelling units. Staff is also seeking the same direction with regard to open space requirements that were discussed under the previous agenda item.
Motion to conduct the first public hearing
Second.
with changes.
Any citizens?
That's with the same changes that were made on the open space with the 60 units multifamily.
Correct.
Right.
Thank you.
Very good. First and second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
The Hess amendment.
That ends our general business. No planning and zoning. Commissioner agenda items. Commissioner Moore.
Okay, I know that at some time previous, we had sent a letter to the state asking them to close the entrance going south on 319 into the old US 319 highway. I've been asked by people at the state if we would approve a resolution going forward for the same thing and send it to them. So my agenda item is to request the board to approve a letter by the staff to be sent to, I'll give them the names, but one of them would be Representative Halsey and Senator Munford, and there is one other.
Gaynor.
Pardon?
Philip Gaynor is the district secretary.
Yes.
Or is it be Jason Peters?
Yes. I think we have one of the things that we really have to, the state and we have to really push this for this time period, because if we have a major hurricane, in about a 9-hour period, there were 900 automobiles going south in about 8 hours. Half of them turn off going to the right. There is no advantage going to the right down there because I go straight ahead and those people who go to the right have to wait on me to make that turn. In that same period, there were over 100 automobiles that coming north made the turn into the old and had to do the runaround. But if you do that runaround in heavy traffic with a gas truck with a 45-foot motorhome pulling a 20-foot trailer, you're going to get it's going to be a mess, and we don't need to wait until we have a hurricane for it to really kick up on us.
David, did you find out where we had voted on this before?
There was a letter sent to DOT. We've sent many letters on this intersection remember back even before 2017 during the design process, we asked that they cut that off completely. But then they came back with a cul-de-sac and we said, no, that doesn't necessarily work either, and they didn't want to do that. So we've sent a letter April 10th that would be cutting off the left turn lane going north.
Right.
Going north. We've also had direction to go ahead and send an email and request from FDOT to cut off the right turn hand lane. That was
going south.
Going south. And that was via email. And the last conversation I had with DOT was on June 12th of 2017 with this. And they were looking at it. They were going to look at it at the same time that they did their overall traffic, their traffic evaluation of the intersection after a year. So that's the communication.
Here's what I would suggest, and I talked to Jason Peters about this, is if you're on 98 going to Crawfordville, you can still turn left on the old road if you wanted to, but at least get rid of the turn, the turn.
Yes.
That encourage people to go there. Just out of muscle memory, they're going to say, well, just put a median there or something.
Are you going south?
No, we're going towards the high school from Panacea.
Yeah. Okay. You're coming east.
You could turn left because you got to have access there for those people to live on that road.
Yeah.
But discourage it. Don't encourage it like they're doing right now. And then if you're southbound, trying to get from Crawfordville to Panacea, get rid of the option to turn right on the old road. Marge? No, you don't like that.
Emotionally, I don't like it. Actually, I think it's...
Can you come up to the telephone, please? Can you come to the speaker?
We'll take citizens.
I'm just picking on Marge. We've known each other for years, and
Marge, hang on just one second.
Marge is also going to be speaking on this as part of the CTS shortly.
Okay, well, hang on. We need to get a second on this motion first.
Well, if your motion is to do what I just said, that get rid of the right turn on the old road, because it does cause problems having two intersections.
Going south.
Going south. Don't block it off. Don't block off.
With all due respect, you've got just as much trouble coming north, because when those people come north and they have to make the right-hand turn and go down to the light and come back around.
That's why I'm saying get rid of the left turn lane that still exists there.
Which is standing with DOT right now. Both of these are standing with DOT right now. That's the
important one.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to...
Getting rid of that left turn lane that's the important thing.
You've got to remove that right turn going south.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And we've already the board's already agreed to do that.
Right.
Well, what is the difficulty with just blocking that off?
Send another one.
Sir?
If that's what y'all want to send a
Yeah,
letter.
I want to send it. Well, I have been asked by people at the state to send another one. So, but basically, my direction is to close that road because there's...
You're talking about close that one lane.
Close...
That access to the road.
Are you fine with what Randy just said?
Close the access.
The southbound
So that
access.
there'll be no access. You don't close the road, just close the access.
That's fine. That's fine with me.
Right.
The only problem you got with that, if you're coming north, you're going to go down to the red light and make a U-turn.
We've already got standing. Both of them. We've got standing.
All right.
DOT, and we'll include that. We can include the left hand as well.
We'll go with.
You want to include both? We
Yes.
can reiterate this letter.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Yes, there's no reason not to.
No, I mean, basically, no through traffic is what that would
That's
do.
right.
Yeah, it'd be no through traffic, that's right.
It just makes sense.
So, let me clarify your motion then.
That's, all right. Yes, my motion would be that we
Your motion would be to
close the intersection of,
to close the right-hand turn lane going southbound.
Yes,
Onto Old Crawford, just close that
Yes.
access.
Yes.
Leave the lane, leave it open, but close the access. Then to reiterate in a letter of the letter dated August 10th to close off or limit access going northbound on 98, turning onto Old Crawfordville Highway. Correct?
But how are you going to achieve that if the road's still there and it's still
Well,
open?
you're not. The thing is they cut the median. The problem is they cut the median back, and they left the turn, all the turn lanes, and they cut the median back. If they had pushed the median forward, it'd have further limited it where you'd had a harder time turning.
with all due respect, it makes no sense not to just close the access to that road.
Well, you can't close both of them.
Well, close the southbound access from the north traffic and the south traffic.
Right, and you'll train people that way.
Yeah,
Yes.
close off this.
I agree with that. That's dangerous,
All right,
and that should take care of the northbound part.
that is correct.
So the motion is to close the north lane
No,
completely?
the motion is to close the access going south
Right.
to Old 319.
Back up here on.
Meaning you won't be able to turn off a 319 on the Old Crawfordville
But you're
Highway.
talking about a physical barrier there that you physically
You
will
just
not be able
continue
to turn
that's
right.
That's right.
And so the people that live there will have to go to the intersection and loop back around.
Back around.
And
Yes, that's correct. There's
and then
only
what about some sort of indication of, going north, no through traffic, no left
They've
hand?
got, and that's what let's see.
That will be a gimme on that, almost.
Well, eventually, but I think initially you're going to have a lot of people turning left.
Well,
and
you
they're going to hit a dead end.
Right past.
Well, they haven't hit a dead end. They're still going to be able to go and do the U-turn, which doesn't make sense either. But they're going to, cutting the right off doesn't affect the northbound traffic. That just affects southbound.
I saw a guy today
I tell you what, y'all go ahead and vote and let us bring the letter back to you for clarification and final approval. Why don't
I'm
we do
just trying
that?
to clarify the motion.
That's right. Y'all need to we can't even get the motion right, so.
Yeah.
We can't, I mean,
Well, let's just-
we have different ideas what's going on here.
Let's just polish it off tonight. Let's close the access to Old 319 on the new section of 319 and the old section. Let's close all ingress and egress
Can't do that.
to that roadway.
You can't do that. You cannot do that. Because people are that gas truck is going to take a left trying to go down the old road. You have to give that camper a way to get out. You can't just block the road off.
You'd force them through Rocky
Yes,
parking
no, you
lot.
cannot
You
do
can
that.
cut the what you do is you cut access to the southbound lane.
Southbound, if you want to
That's
go from Crawfordville to Panacea, you're going to have to go through the light.
All right,
Period.
we'll just
If
make
you
that.
want to go-
All right, we'll make that motion
Okay, if
then.
you want to go from Panacea to Crawfordville, you can either go to the light, or you can go down the old road and go down and do a U-turn and turn around.
That's going to be an absolute mess if we don't do something. That's one of the things you've got to stop because of a hurricane.
Well, Jerry, people's GPS in their cars are telling them to turn left.
Yeah.
That GPS told them to drive in a bridge. They drive the end of a bridge.
That's the
What
problem.
we're going to try to do is get rid of the turn arrows and maybe put some delineators
All right.
up there. But if somebody wants to turn left to get to the corner store, whatever it's called, the
All
Kangaroo,
right, so we can get this settled tonight. I'll accept your,
David, isn't that what we talked about?
Yes,
And that's what the letter
and that's
said.
what the letters and the emails and everything we've all agreed on the whole time. We're talking about all the stuff we all agreed on.
And we've already sent that letter,
Okay.
but I'll be happy to support sending another one.
we'll send it again.
The only motion now is to close the southbound turn from
Close the access.
Ask DOT to
Right,
close it.
right.
We can't close anything.
That's right, to
we're not-
cut off access. We're not,
nothing on the south side.
And
We're closing
to get-
one lane basically on the
Yep,
north side.
and to get rid of the left turn arrows, the old left turn arrows that are encouraging people
To turn into.
and
Right,
the old.
right.
That's the most important part, is this part on 98.
Yes,
Where
I
where the
agree.
turn onto the old Crawfordville Road. That's what causes most of the problems, because they
The GPS says, take this turn.
Yep.
It's still there. It still looks like it on the landscape, so they take the turn.
And that's
Okay.
much more important than the people going
That's
southbound,
much
taking
more
a right.
important. That's much more
I
important.
disagree with that, but that's all right.
All right.
You drive it every day. You
I drive it every day. I see accidents, or just about accidents all the time.
trying to
every
slow down
day.
to turn right.
Trying to slow down to turn right. There's no stacking. People also, they're learning now, they'll be behind somebody, they'll put on their brakes.
Yes.
They automatically go to the left-hand lane, and all of a sudden they go to the left-hand lane.
And my
there's
buddy-
not, it's not a good
One more
turn.
thing,
It's
my
also-
buddy lives on Jack Crum Road, and in the peak summer times, both the light and the Old Crawfield Highway have cars stacked up. So
Yeah.
you don't have any sort of intersection control.
Yeah.
The thing is also what happens is people follow that on their GPS as well.
Well,
They'll take that right.
Well,
And I've
GPS
seen
is
tractor trailers try to turn that right. So we need to, that right needs to stop. But you're right, we need to limit left, and that's what this does.
At least
And
discourage it, not
Discourage.
prevent it, but just discourage it.
That's right.
You can't prevent it.
That's right.
They didn't
Okay.
help it during the construction, by the way.
All right. Do we have something we can vote on?
I think
Okay.
you
all right.
you seconded that? Okay.
I think I made the motion, didn't I?
No. Please make the motion, Randy.
Jerry, can you
Yes.
withdraw your motion?
Yes,
I'll make the
withdraw.
motion to send what I just talked about,
Okay.
Which was?
which was to ask DOT to look at blocking off the southbound
Right, turn lane.
Old Crawfordville Highway access,
Mhm.
not just turn lane, the
That's
access.
access, yeah.
Close it.
Then the northbound on Old Crawford Highway to do something to discourage people, from,
Turning left.
still using the left turn lane.
Utilizing it to go
Yeah.
319.
Make it obvious that they just simply don't know that there's a new intersection
right.
there. They're just going, this is the way I've always went when I came from Alabama.
They ought to
I'm gonna
white
go-
stripe it, is what they should do.
If they stripe it or put some
They put some
reflectors or
white stripe,
delineators,
put white stripe in there, people stay off
make
of
it where they can still turn left if they absolutely want.
Okay, you got that?
You seconding that?
Yeah, I second that.
Okay. We have one citizen, Mr. David Damon.
While he's coming up, I'll tell you what I saw today. I saw a motorhome pulling a trailer coming up the old way. He crossed that median. He bumped himself across it. He saw he was wrong. He went up to the church road, whatever that church road is,
Turned in.
made a left and got in front of a transfer truck, and he was broadside to a transfer truck coming south.
David Damon, Crawfordville. Okay. It makes sense to take care of the problem on the south end of this intersection. I get that. When you're coming from Panacea, it's confusing. Most of us have gotten retrained now, although we still instinctively want to make that turn. It's natural to do. But we're learning. We can be retrained. However, this idea of closing the whole road off going south as a safety issue makes no sense at all. The problem is there needs to be a lane that as you're headed south, you can pull over into a turn lane and then have a Y where you veer off. That would have made sense instead of a 90-degree turn where you have to hit the brakes and turn. Had there been another lane there, and if this is really about safety, you would ask them to put another a turn lane there where a car can move over and then do a Y. That would make sense. Instead, what you're doing, you're going to close that southbound lane and you're going to put that much more traffic in front of the high school. That was the problem with this intersection from day one. No, this is my turn. I know you're dying to say something. From day one, it's all been about shoving all this traffic in front of the high school and around Rockies. Now, this seems more like a ploy to direct traffic in front of a business than it does to address a safety issue. If this was really about safety, there would be a turn lane and people would have a natural Y, and you divide the traffic up instead of cramming it all in front of the high school for the students to contend with and everybody else. And on weekends, that little cutoff lane gets a lot of use. A lot of people go that way. I agree it's no quicker, but it does divide it up. Instead of pouring it, funneling it all right there to the light in front of the high school, it divides it up. If you took care of the problem on the south end and you had a turn lane and a Y, it would make sense. Instead, we spent all this money and you're closing it off just so you can shove all that traffic down around the business down there. This makes no sense if this is really about safety. The hurricane thing, really? do redesign it. That makes sense. You know, they messed up when they did that design. I get it. People hit the brakes and they make that right-hand turn. Put a Y there. Do it right. Get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Marge, you want to speak on this still?
Thank you, no.
Okay. Thank you. Further discussion from the board.
Let me just say, my young 15-year-old daughter goes to school, high school, Ralph yours does too. That intersection is 10 times safer than it was. I drove her through there before, and you go through there now, it's night and day difference.
I do like the idea of the Y, though.
It's a whole
I
lot
don't.
safer.
I don't like it at
This,
all.
this
If
proposal,
it's a real Y, because basically you have to almost stop traffic to make that
I
turn.
understand. Let me explain why I don't like it. That intersection has a traffic signal. It was put there to regulate people navigating 319 and 98. That's what it should be doing. When you throw in that other intersection where you're just causing more traffic conflict.
that's right. What you just did here was throw in another intersection.
If you can get rid of that conflict down there, that's less chance of people having wrecks, and make everybody go to the light, wait for a light to turn green or whatever, it's much, much safer than trying
That's
to
a
pull out in
merge,
front of
right.
people.
So why not just have a cul-de-sac there so people can
Because you
turn
can't
into
deny
their-
those
to their
people
home?
access to their property.
Right, but the cul-de-sac would have a cul-de-sac in the middle going both ways.
Let me answer that
but it's
question
dead
if I
end.
could. Now, let's imagine the grandpa
That was,
coming back from Alabama, stayed at St. George Island. He's got a motor home, and he's got a 20-foot boat behind him. And he comes up to this, and he passes, and he's got a cul-de-sac. What's he going to do?
Yeah.
He can't turn that
He's
thing
gonna get
around
hung
the
up in
cul-de-sac. It's got to be a huge.
well, and that was the problem they said also, but also we had checked with DOT during the plan
Or a
design
semi.
of that, of putting a right, if you're going to keep the right turn lane, turn 10 southbound, to put just exactly what David was saying, a right lane in there.
Mhm.
And they said, no, we're going with this, and here's what we got. And because at that time, they had it, they planned to cul-de-sac that as well.
That just.
So they're going to cut that off. They'll cut that right-hand
People
turn
are still
lane off.
going to they're going to turn left down the old route, be it a semi, be it a motor
Till
home.
GPS changes.
So you got to give them a way out. The cul-de-sac, ideally, what would have happened is they would have milled the whole road up and we'd have an intersection. But there's 2 or 3 houses there, they couldn't do that.
I don't think we've done enough tonight. I hate to keep beating this dead horse. I think we need to address the south end only now. Let's forget the north side. The south end needs to be not encouraging them not to turn, but fix it so they can't turn. Put whatever it takes, a barricade there, and extend the little what they call a pork chop right there, whatever it's called.
Like
I
a
don't want
trice lane there.
They don't need to turn and then have to dogleg around that light up there. It's dangerous.
That's
I'm there
fine.
all the time.
That's fine.
Let's go a little further and ask them to dog it off completely. And the other one is, like Mr. Damon suggested, that we can talk about that in the future. It might be something we need to do. I agree it needs to be regulated by the light, going south and north, or east and west. But we need to dog it off on the south end, period.
And we stick with what I got to make the language from, like
Sure.
Mike said, stronger there.
Sure.
Yeah, I would
you're saying-
support the south end. That needs to be fixed down there, stop that change. I'm not sure about the north end. If I was living in one of those houses, I don't want to have to drive down and go all the way around and come back. So and we heard from those people there, and
Now, on the flip side, that means they ain't going to have a bunch of traffic in front of their house either.
that's true. I mean,
If I lived there, I'd love it.
I'd love it, yeah.
Have their own private road, which
Yeah.
we're gonna have to provide them access, so
Yeah.
we can't get rid of that. So the answer might be that we're gonna have to provide a safety turn and put signage that says for local residents only.
Yeah.
I mean,
We won't be doing any of this, by the way.
Well, we won't
DOT
be
will.
doing any of this.
But if everybody's fine, at least let's
Yeah.
get this letter to them.
All right.
So, but Mike's talking about blocking the south.
Blocking it.
And
Where they
you're
can't
talking
come
about
No,
making it
I'm fine
stronger.
with what Mike says, that's fine.
So
If you want to suggest
completely
blocking it, I don't
block
think
the
they're going
left
to do
turn.
it, but at least we'll suggest they do it, okay?
Well, right now, we're asking them to block the right turn and the left turn then. Right turn going south and left turn going north.
All right, well, hold on. Let me read this letter that you guys have already sent, okay? While we're talking about the south end lane. It says, when the US 319-98 intersection was constructed, the reference turn lane was not closed off and allows traffic to turn north onto Old Crawfordville Highway. This configuration is causing safety hazards since Old Crawfordville Highway does not provide an exit onto US 319 north for vehicles wishing to travel north on US 319. It only provides a right turn heading back to 319 intersection. Therefore, vehicles are wanting to travel north on 319, US 319, are making U-turns at the 319-98 intersection and proceeding into Wakulla High School parking lot to turn around so that they can then proceed with traveling north on US 319. If the reference turn lane was closed, it would force traffic wishing to travel north on US 319 up to US 319-98 intersection and would eliminate this safety hazard and concern.
That's what we want right now.
That's exactly what we want.
Perfect. Leave it.
And just add the
Yes.
again,
Yes.
okay, got it. Add the closing off the south. I got you. Okay.
Everybody's good with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
But
Chuck?
what's the adding and closing off the south? Closing off the top end, and I'm concerned about those. I'd like to get a feeling from those. I'd like to get some kind of feeling from those homeowners there, if that's what they want.
I want to vote on it.
Let's vote.
If you want to vote against it, that's fine.
I'm good.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I have to, no.
Passes 4-1.
Can't
That
vote
en-
on everything, Chuck.
That ends our commissioner agenda items. County attorney. County administrator.
Oh, boy. Have we got y'all thought you were going to get it early. Miss Branda King is going to give her financial...
Say audit.
huh?
Please don't say audit.
State of the
Oh,
Union.
this is pre-audit. Excuse me, no, this is actually a recap of how we did last year and how we ended last year, et cetera.
Not as exciting as the intersection, but it should still be pretty good.
And we have some homework on the board here that we want you guys, I'm just kidding. But we felt like some of this we needed to explain better on the board. As you know, we all think, we think like this, and we use this in our offices to, all our whiteboards. So anyway, Brandy, go
Is
for
that
it.
FB policy? Is that
That's-
Facebook policy?
No.
Okay.
Oh, thank God it's not.
I'll explain my little acronyms as we get along, and we're just going to touch on some of the major funds and a couple of the funds that we had some concerns about, being the Sheriff's Fund and the MSBU Fund. So our major fund, general fund, we intentionally were trying to burn through some money there, as everybody remembers, because we had quite a large surplus. So what we were intentionally trying to spend was about $421,000 on recurring expenses to get rid of that. We also had a couple of one-time shots in there. We sent $130,000 to the supervisor of elections for some voting equipment, $20,000 to the senior center. Are you going to point? Okay, good. If you can follow along. All right, so we're at the one-time, the $176,000. General fund, there we go. And that also included $25,000 for some equipment in the general fund. We also had a transfer to the MSBU fund of $129,000, and that came from our revenue stabilization fund to prop up that fund balance in the MSBU fund because we realized there was an issue there. So all that recapped, what we intended to spend was $726,000. What we actually spent was $941,000. So the question that you're going to have is why? Well, I went through each department and I looked at the revenue that we budgeted versus the expenses that we budgeted to see where we missed our mark. We collected about $15,000 more general fund revenue than we budgeted, and we spent about $137,000 more expense in general fund departments. There was a couple things that we didn't have any control over, and they were truly unanticipated when we approved our budget. Mainly, we have some litigation costs in there, and David has the exact, there's two large ones in there. We have Mathers and, yeah, $121,000.
The road.
Yes. We also had a storm. We also had a storm in January that was an unnamed storm, but it was a severe storm. Did some serious damage at our rec park. That was about $30,000 to replace some batting cages. If you remember, y'all approved a budget amendment to take care of a settlement for the sheriff's office for $120,000, so that was unanticipated. Then we had a couple transfers out of our general fund. The largest one being we had litigation with Gulf Group. They defaulted on some construction work, and that was Walker Creek and Surf Road. We had a settlement from them, but it didn't cover Bostic Pelt? Okay. It didn't cover everything, so we had to transfer that money from the general fund to make that the special revenue fund or the capital fund that it was in to make it right.
Which should have come from the 1 cent sales tax.
It potentially could have come from 1 cent sales tax as well, but it came from the general fund. So
Hurricanes and attorneys got all the money.
well, that wasn't actually a hurricane. It was not a named storm. It was just a really bad thunderstorm, that really bad wind, and tore up the batting cages. So
Altogether, we spent $257,000 of unexpected dollars.
Yes.
That's the reason we have a reserve.
Yes, and those were truly unanticipated. So at the beginning of this fiscal year, as October 1st, 2017, we are at fund balance policy in the general fund. And just so everybody knows, I'm using the middle of the road, which is 29%. The target's 25 to 33, so we just go down the middle. A couple other things that we can't have this conversation about the general fund without talking about, because we did blow through a little bit more money. We got a little better at spending it this year. We had a large write-off in our EMS revenue, about $300,000 that is uncollectible. And so it was written down, and so it impacted our cash position.
Tell everybody what that is so they understand. Mostly that's
accounts receivable that are not going to be able to collect it. They're
because
over.
we can bill Medicare, Medicaid, whatever we want.
That's different.
They're only going to pay a certain amount. Or this,
That's all lumped in at the end of the
it's all lumped in with it?
Well, you have a couple different issues with EMS revenue. We have the Medicare rate and what they're going to pay, insurance rates, but then you actually have billings that you've billed that you know you're not going to collect because they're over 365 days old. We do send them to a collection agency, and we may get a certain percentage of them, but at that point we deem them we're not going to get this money
I
back.
think the main thing
They're not.
people need to understand is you can't say we're not sending an ambulance to your house anymore because you didn't pay your bill.
Correct. You have
They
to
just
send that
say,
ambulance.
I don't have the money, I'm not going to pay it.
Let me clear there on the EMS. That EMS 301K, that is, we send all of our runs, those invoices go to, or the statements go to our vendor that bills those out to Medicare insurance companies. So what this is, that is an aggregate of all of that together. Medicare pays $130 a run it costs us, and we bill out about $600 a
We
run.
send them a bill for $600, knowing they're only going to pay $130, because that's all
right.
they're going to pay. And we have to write that off.
But we have to write, so every year what happens is write it off. The problem is, and this is where Greg and I have sparred, is that was an unanticipated write-off for the year. From the standpoint of we book net revenues, and now we're backing off of the net, we're hitting net revenues with that 301. But what should happen, and where we're going to do it this year, is we're going to book gross revenues in our financial statement, because on the balance sheet we're booking gross revenues. Okay, and then you're netting it out the way you're supposed to. You get your uncollectibles, all that. Problem is it's not hitting the financial
Why don't you
statements.
book a certain loss?
We're going to rebook it this year to where we're booking and we're writing it down every month, but we're also writing it off of gross the way it should.
I got a question. What percentage are we collecting?
We are collecting
Roughly 50.
Right, about 50 to 60%, yeah.
Okay, and you did mention something like some of these were older than 365 days. What do you mean by that?
Any bill that's been on the accounts receivable for over 365 days, the assumption is we're not going to be able to collect that money.
Well, what we do, Jerry, is our company that bills this, they'll keep it for 3 months. All right, and they'll try to collect for 3 months. Then we send it. We have another company. Once that ages out, because that's all they do. It ages out. It goes to another collections agency. And then after that, it comes to Nanette, and she'll try to collect it, but then if it's not after a year, we haven't collected it, we write it off.
So we only collect 50% of our
We
billing?
collect between 50 and 60%.
Wow.
But automatically, and also that all varies based upon, insurance companies will pay, some will pay just so much. Same thing with Medicare and Medicaid.
Capital Health pays all of it.
They will only pay us.
I understand
this,
that.
That's it, so.
Yeah.
Can we lien a property like we would on a code enforcement lien that's not paid, not
I'd
collected?
watch out there, man.
You can't, well, it depends on
You
the
can't
status
deny
of the
serve,
property.
yeah.
You certainly can't lien.
You lean grandma's
Homesteaded
house.
property, you never could. And the problem you get to with these is, you would have other collection options through the courts, but then you're really spending $1 to chase
Right.
a dime in a lot of
And
instances.
a lot of times the money's not there.
They just don't, a lot of times they just don't have
A
it.
big bulk of this 301,000 is from Medicaid and insurance companies.
The only reason I think about the lien, not that, no, we're not going to foreclose on grandma's house, but if you had a lien there and they sell grandma's house or grandma passes away and the heirs have it, at some point they've got to square up the liens,
Yeah.
and then the citizens are made whole again.
Yeah, because if I'm sitting at home tonight and I'm hearing this conversation, and I'm a young couple or, and I need an ambulance, and I'm hearing the conversation tonight, I can say, well, just don't pay it, and they're going to forgive it. So I'm hearing what you're saying. We need some sort of leverage.
Yeah, it does get
credit. We
sent
gain
to a
their
collection
credit.
agency.
Yeah.
And remember, this is very important, that most of this write-off is the government, the U.S. government. You send the U.S. government a bill for $600,
Okay.
you got to write off $450 of that
That's
because they're
right.
not going to pay it.
I'd be interested to see what that percentage is.
Yeah.
When you have time, if you can tell us.
We've got that, and that is something that we're going to be, we're analyzing
Looking at
that
very
from year to
closely.
year. Yeah.
Now, with that said, I can tell you from the years I've been here, 50 or 60% is a whole lot better than what we used to do.
yes.
We used to do 25 or 30%. Now that, for the public out there, that still sounds bad. And I'm thinking if I'm sitting at home, I can take an ambulance run because people call because they have the flu to take an ambulance.
Yeah.
That's the truth. If I need an ambulance, it's kind of like having a spare tire. When you need it, it's there. And I want them to come get me if I need an ambulance. But
Well-
people are not going to pay.
They need to understand too, again, if somebody could call the ambulance 10 times in a row and they didn't pay their bill, you got to go out there that 11th time.
I know.
We don't charge for fire service, or we don't charge to go have a fire truck come to your house, for example. They have to go. The ambulance has to go.
We're collecting right now. When I first came on board, we had a $2 million write-off right at it.
So part of this,
And we're now down to that 301 is high. Last year, I think the year before, we wrote off, what was that, Greg?
About 150.
About 150. So we're doing we're doing better than majority of the counties in the state are doing right
so
now.
part of that 300,000 that we didn't collect is government money that we didn't collect.
There's a part of collections we're not ever going to get.
Yeah, I understand that. So there's nothing, you could beat them with a hammer and they won't give you
They're
money.
only going to pay you $150.
And so what we try to control, and every year this number could be up, it could be down according to where, what time things came in and all that stuff. So that's a number not to freak out on. We're monitoring it, watching it. But the good news is we're collecting more today. When I first came here, not to say I did it, it's our team. We were collecting about $400,000 a year. Now we're bumping 1.1, 1.2 million.
I know you made a change there.
Okay, so it's not, and that's actual, and that's net. That's not gross, that's net. That's net.
So do you have any gauge of how we stand for people that are using the ambulance because they've got a ingrown toenail, and they...
We try to eliminate that. What we've done is they actually can, if you go there and you have an ingrown toenail and they take care of it for them, there's a $100 charge. So we charge folks for that, for those things.
They
And
just,
that's
if they're
why
looking for a ride to town, they got
looking for a ride to
cold
town.
and
If they say
not a
they want to go,
life-threatening.
You got to
we have some of that, yes, but it's not as bad as it used to be. We used to have people that will actually go from Franklin County, Alligator Point. They would come all the way over to the other side of the bridge and park and call us, and we would have to transport them. And we have a hard time collecting that money, and then they would never pay. But we've stopped that as well. And I can't remember exactly how we did that, but we stopped it. We don't have that.
I would just think if we could lean it somehow, we're going to get part of that back. There's a lot of liens that are paid because someone applies for a home loan and the mortgage company says, you got to square this away.
Believe it or not, we have
get paid.
we have a lot of people that just won't pay their deductible.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. A lot of this is just not, you get the portion from the insurance provider, but you never get the copay or deductible that's the patient is responsible for as well.
$100, $200, and they don't understand how expensive it is to run a ambulance service. And right now we're running about $2 million a year, roughly, and we collect $1 million, and we're doing good to collect half of our revenue. And they don't understand is every time they don't pay, that means we're having to put more taxes towards it. If you pay your fair share, we keep our taxes down.
Citizen, the rest of the citizens.
That's right. That's the citizens are paying for it.
The best thing you can do is not get a helicopter, because when somebody takes a helicopter to the hospital, it's $4,000, $5,000.
That's expensive, yes.
Yeah, and it's a little town up in the mountains just got a helicopter, and the medical facility loves it because they pick up somebody. It's a $5,000 bill to haul them 10 miles.
Anyway, go ahead.
Going forward in the current year, what we're looking at with finance is actually tracking what the gross billings are. So this is what we actually billed out everybody. Then reducing the contractual discounts, for lack of a better word, for like Medicare. So we can come up with a true number of what we're billing, what it's costing us, and so we're segregating all that out. We'll have a little better idea when we get through probably the next 3 or 4 months as we're starting to track that a little differently.
Brandon,
We can talk about this more at the workshop. I was going to say we have a workshop, the second meeting in March, I think, so we can talk about it a little bit more extensively then. Good on EMS revenue for now. The other big area that we missed the mark on revenue in the general fund was probation. We budgeted about $109,000 in revenue. We collected half of that. There's been some changes with the pretrial release services being outsourced, and when that happened, we were not sure what the budget impact was going to be, so we had to throw a number out there and get a year's worth of data to see where we're going to be. All in all, we're in good shape in the general fund. We have now reached the point where we're not sitting on a large nest egg of money, and so we're going to watch that very closely this year to make sure we don't need to make any mid-year operational changes, because we did plan to burn through some more fund balance this year. So
are you saying that didn't work out to outsource it? Is that something that we need to?
Well, we outsourced it. It doesn't cost us anything, but we also don't collect the revenue that went with it when it was in-house through probation.
It was an offset. We lost some expense.
And we lost some revenue.
Also lost revenue from it.
But the services that are being provided are a little more extensive than we were able to provide with just the small staff for probation. We spoke with Judge Walker. She's really happy with the way it's working, so it was something that
we were going to have to ramp up and actually add more expense in there, and it wasn't worth it.
Didn't we cut a salary?
We cut a salary.
Yes, we cut a position.
If we were going to have to go to where they wanted us to go, we were going to have to add another position, and that became it. Because you can see there's a $50,000 thing, and an employee's $35,000 to $40,000
or more, depending on benefit levels.
That's right.
All right, so that's all our general fund. Any questions about general fund? We're good. Randy's saying wrap it up. Building fund, not much to talk about there. Our BFB, which is our beginning fund balance, was $636,000. They made $136,000 profit. So now their ending fund balance for 16-17 is $772,000. Those are restricted funds, as everybody knows. Can't spend them on anything other than building fund activities, and with the rate of new construction, I expect that trend to continue. Interestingly enough, we budgeted to collect $386,000 in actual revenue. That doesn't include none of these figures include any cash forward or reserves, because they're just true revenue and expense. And they actually collected almost $670,000 in revenue. So the fund balance policy for the building fund is $154,000. They have a surplus of almost $620,000. So that stays in their fund, and it just keeps building.
Why can't we reduce? Why can't we reduce the fees?
Good.
And
we did that not too long ago.
Well,
you
let's
can either reduce fees, or you can increase levels of service. And I strongly suspect we're going to need to increase our level of service in the near future.
Yes, as well.
It's very hard to find a building official. It's very hard to find building inspectors. They need equipment. right, David? Trucks,
This
whatever?
this is going to be coming to you guys in probably April and May.
Well, I tell you, the thing
We're working on a plan for fixing some stuff.
well, you need to work on a plan to reduce the cost of the building piece. I know that Randy said that we have to hire more people and whatever, but we're still generating an excess of what we need.
And we're going to balance both of that, yes, sir.
We've been talking
I think
about
we can
this
do
for...
both.
I think that's what I mean, and that's what we're working on.
Service and decrease fees
That's
at the
right.
same time. We got extra, nearly $500,000,
Right.
$450,000.
We got a lot of fixes in the building department, so yes.
So there's not nothing bad really to talk about there. Everything's
Right.
good. We'll have some changes coming forward. The sheriff's fund, our beginning fund balance was $622,000. They made about $960,000 in profit, and they ending fund balance was almost $1.6 million.
This is the real shining star, by the way, of the...
This, and it's interesting because we're holding to that $1.8 million cap on what we're budgeting for revenue. So everything that comes in over that, which was about $1.2 million last year, is going right to the sheriff's fund to bring them up to fund balance policy. At the rate we're going, maybe real close at the end of the current fiscal year. They're still about $1.3 million below where they need to be for fund balance policy, but it's quite an improvement over where they ended 15-16, and we are segregating that revenue to isolate what it actually costs to run the ICE program versus local corrections, so that jailbed revenue is no longer going to be subsidizing. At least we can see the amount that is subsidizing our local corrections.
And then moving...
It's easier for to make operational decisions and stuff when we get to that point.
And moving forward, the access over a fund balance policy is going to go towards one-time capital improvements that'll take the place of some dollars being spent in 1 cent sales tax, et cetera. Possibly one of the things we're talking to them about is removing readjusting. They will remove buying all the trucks from the 1 cent sales tax and buy that from this access.
Yep.
And therefore, we can take those funds and transfer that to the Parks and Recreation or wherever else we have a need at that time.
Key thing, I think, is not to make the mistake of the past and saying, well, they're making they're making 2.5 million a year. Let's not budget 1.8 million a year in revenue. Let's budget 2.5. That's what got us in that jam in the first place.
And we're not doing that. We
Stick
said
with
it.
1.8 budget, even though we know that they're going to make more than that. The profit, the sheriff, I think personally should have a little discretion on how he wants to do, if he wants to give his people a one-time bonus, he could do that. If he wants to have a hiring bonus to help get correctional officers, which are hard to get, he could do that. It's not coming out of property taxes. My key thing is to keep budgeting revenue low, because ICE could take this stuff away next year too.
Yeah.
Then we'd be in a jam.
Well, not
a huge jam.
Not as bad as we were.
Not as bad as we were.
We're sitting in a really good position.
I'd like to see it revenue neutral, but we're not there yet.
We're close. We're really close.
We're close to revenue neutral.
The very first part of that was to identify what does it actually cost to run the program. And now that we're segregating that, we're really close.
So in other words, if ICE came and pulled out tomorrow, how much money would we have to give the sheriff to keep his regular operation?
Correct. Just the local corrections.
Now it's about $200,000.
That's a lot. That's great. That's livable.
It was $2 million at one time.
That's livable.
Yes.
Right.
So that's where we are with the sheriff.
That was just through physical discipline as well, holding the line where we needed to hold the line.
And Jared's relationship with the ICE has dramatically increased the number of prisoners.
Go on to Brandy.
All right. The fire MSBU fund, beginning fund balance was $171,000. We lost about $81,000. Our ending fund balance is about $90,000, which is a little higher than our projection. We thought they'd end the year with about 70, but we have, as you know, the MSBU assessment changed for the beginning of this year, and I was watching the revenue, what we've collected so far this year. We're on track to meet what we budgeted, and that should start to turn itself around as well. Hopefully at the end of this year there'll be a significant improvement. So they're about a $300,000 deficit below where the fund balance policy says we should have for the fire MSBU fund. We did have to we made a couple operational adjustments mid-year because we were identifying that they were not going to have enough cash to make it or didn't look like it. So the fire and EMS employees that are dual certified used to be charged 50% to the MSBU fund and 50% to the general fund. We did an allocation where we actually did time diaries and made some adjustments and reduced the percentage in the MSBU fund to 38% and raised it to 62 in the general fund. So that helped them to end the year with a little bit more than what we predicted. So other than that, all the rest of the special revenue funds, capital funds, sewer, enterprise funds, everything else is in good shape. But if you guys have any questions about any other particular fund, I have line by line financials for last year. What do you want to know?
And don't forget, all the constitutionals are doing good too.
Yes.
All the constitutionals are doing well, yes.
We all discussed all this in the audit committee.
Well, what you guys have done is allowed us to make changes, even with the constitutional setting it up to where they were allowed to have their own account. They keep their own money up to a certain point. So financially, our county is as sound today as it's ever been sound. So we're sitting in solid position all the way around.
High cotton.
On that note, with our first budget workshop for next year coming up, is there anything specific anybody wants to talk about so I can prepare? If there is, you don't have to say now, just send me an email, let me know, and I want to make sure I have all the information at the workshop that you guys want to know about.
Thank you, Brandy. Next thing is fire union. I sent you guys the agreement that we've reached, or the declaration. I expect y'all to read it and we'll have a test. I'm just kidding. But that'll be on our next agenda. We'll also have a 4 p.m. executive session at our next meeting on March, what is that, March 5th? So make sure, don't forget that. That's 4 p.m. Dredging at Mash's Sand started and then sank. We sank an excavator. It wasn't anybody's fault. It hit a pocket. And hit a pocket of mud. So anyway, we'll be back up to go on Wednesday. We've got another excavator that's come in, but that should move smoothly from here on. Hopefully we don't hit another pocket.
Dave, when you say we, is that county or?
County. Oh, ESG.
So they lost an excavator.
Well, it was a rental excavator, thank goodness.
Okay, but the county taxpayers are not responsible for that excavator.
No, insurance. We have insurance, that's right.
County did lose one years ago, Mike. You remember that?
Long time ago.
Yeah, and he couldn't help it. This just all of a sudden it just collapsed on him. Shell Point Beach improvements are underway. We've had some citizens down there have asked us about the design of the wall and the type of materials being used, and the building department went and looked at it today, and sure enough, there was some instances where the right materials were not being used. We've contacted FDEP. As you know, they engineered the project, they funded the project. They've done all the stuff. So anyway, there'll be some corrections on some of the material. They were not using salt-treated material as they should have, or have any type of ground exposure. So they're changing that out, which should have been caught by DEP because they're the ones that oversee in their funds. So
they have an inspector?
They have their own inspector and everything, and they missed it. So,
okay.
All right. But anyway, in the future, let us know if you hear anything from any citizens. We refer all that to FDEP. That's not our bailiwick. Shadeville Road resurfacing leveling lift is finished. Upper bridge paving and parking area and boat ramp area are completely paved.
That looks excellent too.
Yeah, striping's going to follow.
Real good job on that.
Yeah, they really did a good job on that. And we'll have a grand opening event and all that stuff. Jessica's planning all that right now. FDOT released 60% plans for the bike trail segments from St. Mark's Lighthouse, really all the way to Surf Road, excluding the section that's under construction now. We've released all 3 of those plan sections to our interested parties list, as well as I talked to Cherie Miller this morning. She knows about it, and she's actually, FDOT is planning a community meeting down there at the end of March. Don't know exactly what day yet. It'll be towards the end of March at the community center to have for the Panacea area to come and talk about the plans. But it looks like the 10-foot trail comes into both ends of Panacea, and then it necks down to a 4-foot or a 5-foot sidewalk section through Panacea, which is much better. So I think it'll make people happy, but we'll see.
And that's going to be like a flat grade section there, so
yeah, it'll be a typical
car can drive over it.
That's right. It'll be a typical the typical driveway section.
Parts
And
of
they've
Pan-
actually got plans shown in the plans to where they're going to eventually sidewalk both sides. which
So
will
say
make it-
parts of, there's already been a DOT project approved to put a sidewalk from Otter Lake Road, you know.
Right.
We've already went out there and met DOT. This is a separate project.
Yeah,
so-
eventually, that's right, eventually it'll
Two
be, both
sidewalks.
sides will be sidewalked.
That's right. In certain areas.
That's right, in the Panacea area.
And they got away from Ronald Fred Crump's place, right? They went to the other side of the road from what I saw on those
Yeah.
plans.
But there'll be a sidewalk eventually go back through there. But yeah, it'll be at grade. Let's see, Nanette and Cleve are at a Wakulla Gardens Concerned Citizens meeting right now over at Pioneer Baptist Church. That's just a small group that meets about from Wakulla Garden citizens, and they're doing all that now, mainly about the sewer, but all that seems to be going well. We're having a few issues here and there on the sewer, but nothing that we didn't expect. Also today, we received from FDEP General Counsel an order of dismissal with leave to amend on the Lake Ellen boat ramp, meaning to each, they responded, dismissed each one of the folks that had sent administrative appeals to DEP. They've dismissed that. They have now 15 days to appeal that, and/or 30 days to take it to administrative hearing. So that's where we are there. That just came in this afternoon. So that's all I've got.
Sounds good.
Probably gonna go to the cemetery.
All right.
I bet it will.
Citizens to be heard? None? Go to discussion items. Randy, you've
Nope.
got one scheduled.
Oh, I do?
Yeah.
What is it?
Expanded internet service.
Oh, I got contact with a citizen in Sweetwater Ridge, I think it was, David, with concerns about not having very good internet speed. I know that's not our responsibility to provide internet speed, but I don't know if there's something we can do to encourage Comcast to go in these historic neighborhoods and put cable lines or upgrade whatever internet service somebody has with their phone lines. I'm not asking us to spend any money, but if there's any way we can encourage these groups to provide internet service.
Well, we talked to CenturyLink, and they're looking at some possibilities. Commissioner Thomas, he chimed in on his side what issues he was having, and so did some other folks in Sweetwater Ridge, and they're looking at it.
And I've been gathering some emails, and I'm forwarding them
Yeah.
to CenturyLink.
Well,
That seems to be the main problem.
One
people
individual
have.
homeowner, citizen, is not going to get anywhere with Comcast. And my thing is CenturyLink or Comcast is on Lonnie Raker Road. They won't run
Well, and that's
subdivision.
Well, one of the things that I met with the, and I didn't tell you guys about this, but I met with the the Triumph Gulf Coast, their economist and the lady that's pulling all the funding together. And that's one of the things we talked about, the possibility of us expanding our internet service in the county by running Comcast, which seems to be the more reliable internet. Not that I'm advocating for that, but is that a possibility of a Triumph, a Triumph project? They're going to get back with me on that. Not sure if it will be or not, but seeing that our industry, we're a bedroom community of Tallahassee, whether they like it or not, we need to improve our internet service. I know Chuck or Commissioner Hess and others have expressed we need to get it, and so we've asked that question as well as I haven't contacted Comcast yet, but Jessica's going to get me a contact for Comcast as well to begin.
It used to be
discussions.
Irvin Jenkins, who worked there for years. He was their construction guy. And I knew Irvin. I could call him.
We got.
I don't know who is there now.
We got to go on up the line.
If any of y'all
Problem
have
is-
any ideas of how to put pressure on these utility companies to provide more service or better service, I'm open. I'm all ears.
We're working it through the Florida Association of Counties and the Small County Coalition. There's a big push from the education community to spread rural broadband for, we got TCC and FSU students that they need to do homework while they're
Yeah.
at home.
High school students need to get
Sometimes
internet
have to go somewhere else. If I've got a big upload I have to do at my house, I've got to go back to my office to do it because it's pitiful. I just recently canceled my CenturyLink I'm saving $100 a month, and I'm using just my Verizon is what I'm using for internet access. It's not ideal, but it's way faster. I was at 1 megabit per second download, and now I can get 20 to 40, but I get throttled at a certain point, and have to do the switching hotspots between different phones. So it's a little more aggravating, but I'm saving $100 a month doing that. But we're pushing it from that side.
And we have a high-speed fiber optic line right on 319, and there should be some way that we can spread that throughout our community.
And that was another thing. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's another thing we talked to Triumph about, was the possibility of extending that fiber optic service as well.
Just simply being able, Sweetwater Ridge, for example, cable it's available, it's on the road. How much would you charge, if it's $100 a piece to go run a cable for these people? Just tell them what it is, and if they want to buy it, fine. If not, they can use CenturyLink, or they can use satellite, or they can use Verizon.
Anyway, that is a work in progress, and it is a problem, and we're working on it. It's just we have very little. Our hammer's very, very small.
If I just had a contact person like Irvin Jenkins used to be at Comcast, I just don't know who to call.
Yeah, we're gonna find out, and if we need to, like I say, we're working a couple different angles, and it may not be next 6 months, but eventually we'll solve it. So
I think as the technology evolves and the 5G becomes a larger footprint, I believe it's going to squeeze the wired guys out. I think eventually it's going to be wireless. There's a FirstNet push that the federal government is pushing right now to put all EMS, law enforcement, sheriff, ambulances, all on this system, so they'd be able to access from anywhere they are. And so,
except Smith Creek.
No, they're as well, satellite based. And once all that comes into place, it should be easier to piggyback on those antennas and have a commercial aspect to it as well. But I think wireless is definitely still the future.
Nothing else.
Nothing else. Nothing for me tonight, Jerry?
Jerry's always got something.
Randy asked me to say a few things.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. Basically, we hear about buying Wakulla. We have an oyster business that's doing very good. So when you go to your restaurants, ask them if those oysters that they're serving are grown in Wakulla. Ask them, tell them that you want Wakulla oysters. Now, they may cost you $1 more, but $1's $1. But anyway, ask your restaurants, because right now they're getting them from Texas and Louisiana. They're not buying our oysters. So if it's by Wakulla, it's by Wakulla. It's by Wakulla food. So we do have a lot of oysters available. David, I noticed I was at Rockland and over the weekend, that parking lot was packed, and people were pulling their boats in front of other people who were, so instead of being able to pull through when you had your boat there, your trailer, you had to back out and come around. So we have no more space available at Rock Landing. So see what we can do down there, because as we go forward, we're going to need space.
Yeah, and you're right. It's
also,
we gotta look at it.
I was just reading that Escambia County they are putting 700 artificial reefs into Escambia County, and it's being paid by NARDA. NARDA.
Yeah.
NARDA.
The same people that's doing our shell pump.
Yeah.
And
all right. Well, we need some of those. We need some of that. Also, Walker Marine in Orange Beach, Alabama, they're putting 305 more, and they're putting 77 of the large, like 12-foot wide, 10-foot high. So they're putting 1,000 in down there.
That is primarily a one-time shot from BP, because they were disproportionately affected, even worse than everybody else. And that's the reason NERDA awarded those.
So are we going to get any of that?
We will get it. It won't be through NERDA, no. We will get it through the Gulf Consortium, but not through NERDA.
Okay, all right. Just
I say that. Anything could happen, but...
How are we doing on the Forest Service and the trade of our land?
They've got all our information on the, we sent them all the, shucks, what am I thinking? Our research on our deeds and all our insurance on the land, etc. And we're waiting on them to get back to us now.
Okay. Also, I'd like to, it's hard to say how important that Randy is on the CRTPA, and I'll reiterate this one more time. I think the cost for moving the utilities was what, 40 million, 30 million?
12 million is what we had projected, but it could
How
be
many?
12 million.
12
what we
million.
projected, yes.
That's $12 million that the taxpayers don't have to pay because the state is, the FDOT is going to pay for moving those utilities as they develop the road. And we're very fortunate. Randy's been on that CTRPA for, what, 30 years, Randy?
Oh, yeah, at least.
It's been on there, no, I'm just kidding, but he's been on there a long time, and he's very important to us to be in that position. So I just want to congratulate you on helping us to. That's all.
Nothing.
Motion adjourned.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Good job, Randy.
Huh?
It was